Welcome to Tanked Up, the podcast about video games and beer. It's episode 212, we think. We've conferred it may be. I'm Ben. I'm here with Lucy.
Time has no meaning anymore.
Yeah, that's absolutely, completely. We're here with Aadil as well.
Hey!
Hey.
Hi.
How's everybody doing?
Good.
I'm kind of crunk already, so...
Oh,
one of my best friends just defended his dissertation, so we did a social distance drinking in the park, and it was grand.
Nice.
But also, it was grand.
Good. You mentioned you had some beers. Were there beers of note?
No. This was like proper, hey, we're philosophy people hanging out. If we were at the pub, we'd have shitty beers, so it was 4 Stellas and then some Diet Pepsi and vodka.
it sounds like being 13 again.
Yep, that's fine.
Hey, look, I am in my 3rd adolescence, and I'm enjoying it.
When do I
you
reach my first?
midlife crisis?
No, my midlife crisis was like buying the 1950s vehicle.
Oh, yes.
And that was like 10, 12 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Shit, no. I was in... Oh my god, no. Yeah, it was 10 years ago. It was in 2008?
That was 12 years ago, believe
Shut
it
up.
or not.
Let's forget about
basically,
midlife crisis.
I'm on the path to death.
As we all
aren't
are.
we all? Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. All we could do is enjoy ourselves whilst we head there.
Pretty
Let's
much.
crack open some beers. Lucy, last I heard, you weren't going to drink this
No.
week.
But instead of the water, I have masala chai, so I'll be reviewing that today just to make it a bit
Nice.
spicier.
Good. Oh, spicy.
Yes.
Yeah, I like it. Adil, you and I, one of our beers this week, you and I are...
Is that the
both
one you want to
drinking.
start with?
I think so, because my second beer is a double IPA.
So my other beer is a lighter beer, but that's fine. Let's do this.
I can see the little Arbor can in the background. Which Arbor is it?
It's the lemon and lime pale ale. I
I've got
knew
that
I
on the
was gonna
shelf.
have. Really?
Yeah.
I should have said.
We need to start planning this better, guys.
No,
We
we're
don't
good.
every
We're
week,
good.
I know
We're
we
good.
don't.
Slightly. We
Yeah.
both got
True.
video
We're
gamey
50%
pollies.
of the way there.
I think
Pretty
it's
good.
fine because I picked this lighter beer mostly because I knew I was drinking beforehand.
Mhm.
It's also pale ale after an IPA, not the best, but it'll be fine.
Yeah, well,
Let's-
we'll see what this,
let's
we'll
do
see what
the
this
polish,
IPA is like. Also, we're not quite 50% of the way there, are we? Lucy, if you'd have had this beer, then we'd be then we'd be 50% of the way there. But currently, we're like, I don't know, a third of the
So,
way there. Let's say.
Agree. I know it is a day to drink because it's sweltering today.
Yeah,
Well,
it is.
If you're
very
watching the
salty.
video, you'll see I've pulled my sleeves up. I'm so hot. It's so hot in this little room, especially with this bloody PC and this fan going
Oh,
and going
I
and
bet,
going.
yeah.
Oh my god, I'm boiling.
So, it's a fresh, modern, and vibrant beers produced with passion from Folly's old farm in our hometown of Mold, North Wales. This has Azaka, Citra, Mosaic, and Simcoe hops. The malts are extra pale, Munich, oats, and wheat, and the yeast is Kvek. Kvek?
Yeah, I'm not really sure how to say that one.
Kvek.
Creek,
fuck
but
you.
with a V.
Yeah, it's it's Polly's
Silent
India
K.
Pale Ale, the Daphne Touch. It is 6.5%,
Nice.
and it's
That's
got
gonna be
lovely can art.
Yeah, very very topical for us. The can art is lots of arcade cabinets of various games, Pac-Man images, Mario, Space Invaders, kind of posters in the background of this. It doesn't even really look like an arcade. It looks like some kind of cobbled together space where arcade machines have just been chucked in at random.
I think it's a
Every barcade.
non-invaded space.
Well done. Happy birthday, Patman, who's 40.
Oh God.
Yeah, turned 40 the other day.
Has he had his midlife crisis yet?
Yes,
I think his
because-
midlife crisis is when he folds in half.
Oh,
He's had a few games. Which,
yeah, fair few. According to my definition, he has had thousands of midlife crises.
yeah.
That's fair.
I think your pour was slightly better than mine, although we both got quite a bit ahead.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's frothy. It's a frothy,
frothy
beer. Ooh. A different nose than the few sort of beers.
I mean, it's so much more like passion fruity, but light, maybe a touch of pineapple. Like there's a sweetness going on. It's definitely tropical and sweet.
It is, but it's a very slight sweetness, isn't it? A bit subdued. It's not that kind of bright candy kind of sweetness.
Yeah, no, definitely, yeah. I mean, I think that's why I said pineapple, because pineapples are sweet, but they smell kind of tart.
Yeah, and it's quite straw in colour. The head is lasting. It's sticking around. Super frothy still. But it's yeah.
But I can
it's
smell
a nice,
it from here.
Nice, pleasant nose. Yeah, it is strong. Yeah, absolutely.
Given that it has Azaka, Citra, Mosaic, and Simcoe. I mean, I'm getting those Citra, Mosaic thing, and a bit of the Simcoe just from like a quarter meter away from the glass. Just like it's wafting really strong hoppy notes.
Well, I've had a sip. That is a lovely beer. You're getting the pineapple straight away from that. I don't know. We've had beers where pineapple has worked. It hasn't worked quite as well. It comes on not quite as strong. This really highlights that and pushes it really well. And it is that sweetness that you get with pineapple as well. That slightly subdued sweetness, which can be a little bit maybe pithy, but it shows that really, really well. And it's a little bit creamy as well in the body. I don't know whether that's helping kind of push this slightly more solid pineapple flavour to the front, but there is a few other things.
You're right, though. Like, I think there's other things going on, but because it's so mildly sweet and tropical, like pineapple just comes at you. So I actually think some of that tropicalness is a bit more nuanced. Like, I think there's a bit of like something like a passion fruit versus a mango. But because that underlying sweetness, again, not like sweet, but like just steady sweet, it means that any sort of tropical and sweet just sends you to pineapple territory. But like I think the tropicalness is a little more nuanced, but because of that like underlying sweetness, it's just very easy to be like, yeah, this is a sweet, pineapple-y, tropical taste. What I'm surprised at is like there's a bit of lingering bitterness, but it's so light that the sweetness kind of overcomes it. Even when the sweetness fades, it's like there's like a subtle note of like dankness, but it's so subtle that the lingering sweetness of the foretaste kind of overpowers it. So it's like,
yes,
I think this is where the other hops are coming in. They're just being overpowered. Like you're like, oh, okay, there's other things going on, but also they don't kind of matter because primarily this is just doing that like tropical, mild, sweet, slightly tart thing. And so when you notice a more dank note, it's like, okay, well, you're doing this, but not to a degree that like impacts the overall.
Definitely. Yeah, I completely agree. It's very Moorish. I think I find when I have pineapple that kind of dependent on the fruit, so dependent on how ripe it is, it can occasionally be overly sweet as well, and sometimes you have a little bit of pineapple with something and you don't want any more. This has a little bit more of that a pithy pineapple sweetness to it, so actually it invites you to have that little bit more, and I think that works well with the passion fruit in the background, with the creaminess of the body, and with that very, very light bitterness, and the fruit sort of coming back.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I want to experience this kind of flow and this journey that it's got through the flavour again.
Yeah, exactly. So this isn't the beer that makes you drink another sip, but it's like there's enough, like there's the nuance is sort of like sub one layer. So you're like, wait, did I miss a thing? Maybe I'll investigate, and if I don't, I'll be fine. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah. So like when you're saying like that dankness and that like these other notes, they're like below the very good, strong, interesting tropical note. And if you just let it go, it'd be fine. But you're like, well, maybe I'll go a little further. And you're like, okay, there's something there, but they're so light, so they're consistently overpowered by that like sweet, slightly tart tropical note that like I might have to do it again. So it's inviting, it's like bringing you into more sips in a way that it's pursuing flavor rather than quenching.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, fully. This is a very interesting beer.
It is. It is. I was a little bit worried with the choice tonight, only because I had a can of Cannonball about
earlier.
Yeah, maybe I don't know, 45 minutes ago, something like that, and that seems a lot more bitter than I remember it. So I'm sat there thinking, oh, this is actually. I hope this doesn't kind of impact the next beer. When we start recording, but actually it's just cutting straight through that. So I'm really glad that it has that really strong and inviting taste to it.
I definitely find Cannonball a bit maltier these days. Maybe not more bitter, but definitely more malty.
Yeah.
From what I can remember back in the day.
I mean, that's one thing that this is a very like layered tasting beer, but it like the tin said what about it said it was like multiple malts. It said it was extra pale Munich oats and wheat, and like that's a thing this beer just doesn't have, is like an interesting or like a dynamic, let's say, not interesting, but like a dynamic multi note. Like so much is going on in the hops and the foretaste that like I'm not noticing things, even like after the fact. Usually, like on a beer like this, you would 30 seconds afterwards be like, oh, actually, there's like this lingering something. And that's usually when the malts kick in on a fruit forward, sort of hop forward beer. And I like, actually, I'm not lambasting it. It's just like, I don't know what malts you put in this, but they're kind of not doing a lot. And that's fine, because what else is going on is really interesting. But like I'm not really noticing anything, and so it's like kind of surprising. There's like they've put 4 different malts into this because none of them seem to be doing anything. Which again, I'm fine with, because sometimes you just don't want that give and take in a certain way. Like the hops are doing that trade off anyway, so I don't think it needs the maltiness. But I'm surprised that there are 4 malts at work to do. Yes,
I think stuff like the oats are contributing to that creaminess in the body.
That's very true. Yeah,
and the Munich. What's the Munich doing? Who knows?
Yeah, that's fair. Anyway, yeah.
I'm gonna put that can down.
Germany. Yeah.
Exactly. Oh yes. I'm not gonna try and guess.
They are living their lives in Bavaria.
Beer.
Those malts.
So, Lucy, how's yours?
My Mythology is good. It's not
good.
It's not like I made it myself. It's just out of a sachet.
That's fair.
Yeah, I mean, I cannot be bothered to make a Mythology from scratch.
I mean, so my mother insists on making chai the right way. But
I need to go live with her.
The base is like, depending on the size of the pot, 4 to 8 like Tetley's tea bags, because like you just need a strong thing. And then it's like some cardamom, maybe some cinnamon, some cloves, like blah blah blah. But like actually, turns out tea is tea, and you just need a strong base.
Yeah. Sometimes it's just like, you know what? This took 2 minutes. It'll do. You only get out as much effort as you put in.
But I will say that you can definitely tell the difference between like those weird syrups and like a black tea bag and a couple of things that are fresh. Well, fresh, the dried herbs, like putting cardamom and cloves and cinnamon in or whatever into a pot with generic tea bag X is way better than squirting the liquid, the syrup, into a thing that says it's chai. Like, it's not.
No. That's just sludge. Slurry.
Yeah.
What is it with you Canadians and all your syrups? Everything's a syrup.
I don't write the rules. I just live by them.
Yeah. One of my friends, I've worked with him twice. He would always, because sometimes he worked an evening shift, he would always make tea that day and bring it in, and it was good.
Nice.
I was like, just bring a flask for me, forget everybody else, because he used to share it around the team, and rightly so. But I was just like,
Yeah, but a bunch of these
just
people
a separate one for
don't
me.
know.
I'm your best friend here. Mates help each other out.
Nice. It's good. It's good to help your friends and share the love. Always.
Yeah.
Share your tea.
So, shall we get into our talking points this evening?
Probably.
I was going to start with you, Lucy, because you haven't got a beer to crack back. But yeah, I will start with you. Why not? There's no but.
It's a really
Nope.
spicy pod today, isn't it?
Yeah,
Just
I think it is. Yeah.
curveballs everywhere. I played some
we're
of that
gonna play MLB The Show later.
No,
we're not.
Was that a PlayStation Plus game or something?
It
Oh
was.
yeah,
It
you
was
lot didn't you lot
some
try
point.
we
playing
definitely.
it?
Yeah, Ben and I
Mm.
definitely I think it was the first time we tried streaming together, and it was kind of a travesty because it's like, well, so I know the rules of baseball and softball, but it turns out there's shortcuts in the default version of the game, and then I was trying to explain the rules to Ben, and they didn't make sense because what I was saying wasn't happening,
Yeah.
but also it's a shitty game.
Maybe
I was like,
it's
no,
just-
you don't get like X attempts. It's like, well, I got 2 attempts, and 2 is way less than X.
Maybe the onboarding is not as good as it should be.
Yeah. But we did have a random viewer on Twitch who didn't say a thing, even when we tried to talk to them. But they stayed for like a half hour, and it's like, why are you watching us fumble at this game? Like, I wanted to just engage with this person because it was like,
I don't blame
you
them.
clearly
for
like baseball. This is bad for you. Why are you still watching us do this and not telling us what we're
it was
fucking up?
clearly a human experiment.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, it's either they knew baseball or
It
they
was
know
an
the
AI.
show and they thought perhaps they'll be pissed and this will
It
just
was an
be silly.
AI
I don't think it was that
collecting
because we
data.
weren't entertaining on the piss
It was
side.
it was AI
We were just
collecting data.
confused.
So someone's
Yeah.
making deep
bot.
machine learning to
Yeah.
like. How do we teach baseball to people who have no idea? And there's
It
it's
turns
like
out that
people who have no clue what baseball
yeah, but it
is.
turns out the right answer isn't not following the rules of baseball. Anyway,
Super
you're
Mega
not- you're not
Baseball's
playing
meant to
MLB.
be good. No. The only baseball game that I've played is Super Mega Baseball. I think I played the first one.
I mean, that game seems like fun, even if you
Yeah.
don't know the rules. In fact,
Yeah.
probably because you don't know the rules.
Yeah, it's very arcadey, and people really rate that series. So yeah, I only played the first one, but the third one, I think it came out recently. It's meant to be pretty good. So if you like baseball, check that out, I guess. But I didn't play baseball. I was swinging things around, but they weren't baseballs. They were more claymores and swords and daggers.
Yeah, that's fair.
Nice.
In Minecraft Dungeons.
Oh,
Ooh.
whoa.
Hmm.
I own Minecraft, but not
do?
Dungeons.
If you have Game Pass, you do.
I've
PC
been
Game
like,
Pass as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I've been like trying to figure out the optimal moment to like succumb to Game Pass, and I've
Probably.
decided it's probably never because I just
Yeah.
don't play enough games.
There's maybe jump in when when you're gaming. That's probably the best. Yeah. Because there's always the rate that in which they add games is quite frightening.
Before you get into the details,
There's not many, so
yeah, I guess maybe actually I'm asking for specific details. So, I've played Minecraft several times.
yeah.
I made an like a Art Nouveau
A
style,
hole in the ground.
like house. Now, like I did the glass and the wood, and I was like, this is cool.
Yeah, that's
and I
probably
realized,
as far as I got.
and I was like, I like this house. I like its design. It doesn't matter because all I needed was like a shack to prevent the creepers from blowing me up. But I liked doing the thing, and then I didn't really play much. But I get that I'm missing out on all kinds of Minecraft. That's not the question. I guess the question is, so given that like Minecraft scratches a certain builder's itch, and some part of Minecraft is just this survival sort of storyline that you have to at some point get obsidian to make a thing and then do a thing. That's the plot. This is as much as I know about Minecraft. Don't judge me, chat. But like
More than I know.
Minecraft Dungeons seems like it's doubling down on that latter thing, or at least it's trying to like. So I guess
it's like Diablo, right?
Yeah.
Well, so I guess
it's a
what is
complete
it?
departure from it's Minecraft only by name and by look. So it is like Diablo. It's an isometric dungeon crawler, loot based. I'll get into the loot systems and more RPG mechanics in a second. But yeah, it's Minecraft only by its label. I mean, it's made by Mojang,
Right.
and it's obviously backed by Microsoft.
Mojang Studios.
Yeah, because that guy got fucked off by that company a long time ago.
Yeah, we won't go into that. We don't need to hear about him. We shall not speak his name.
I mean, we have.
But we didn't say it.
Anyway,
yeah.
So how many rocket-propelled grenades are there?
None. This is very much.
What kind of RPG doesn't have RPGs?
This is very much in the vein of ye old swords and tunics times. Very Lord of the Rings.
Swords and tunics.
It's even got this like British woman commenting over the start, and it has.
Okay.
It's a very bare bones story. Some illager, because there's illagers and villagers.
Yeah.
Who knew? Went rogue and. Yeah, and he's basically taken over hordes of evil mobs, and he's just, taken over the Minecraft world. Yeah, it's very surface level story.
So there's no digging, there's no mining because that's below the surface?
No. It's very much hack and slash. Work your way through these quite long and meandering different biomes, which is very evocative of like Minecraft. You got like the desert. You've got the jungle and stuff like that, all these different biomes. So in look and it is very Minecraft. It's a pretty game. They've done quite a lot with like the lighting and shadows and stuff like that. So it does look nice, but in terms of the gameplay, I think a good analog to this would be like Gears Tactics. You wouldn't go into it for third person cover shooting, which Gears is, famous for and does very well. But it does, well, from what I know, I haven't played it yet, but it does the, turn-based strategy very well. It's very competent at that. Whereas it's gone into, isometric dungeon crawling genre, but it doesn't do much with it. It's very shallow. Like the RPG like elements to it. You're basically finding loot in the world, but these levels are just so sparse. I mean, you've got enemies in the world, but in terms of like going down a path and finding this treasure chest here and solving these puzzles to find other chests, and so there's none of that. It's like you go down like I think it comes back to the fact that these levels are procedurally generated, which doesn't help. So it's like, I've just gone down this long corridor, beating all these enemies. Sure, that's good for XP, but I get the end of it.
Sorry, I was just gonna say, I get that, like, given that Minecraft worlds are procedurally generated, why you want to go that way, but like, it seems like to shore up Minecraft with more linear progression, the worst thing you can do is like tie yourself back to that procedural generated thing, because some runs will be shit.
Yeah.
But like, how you make this world enticing is you make the world enticing by design. Like, I don't know, like, maybe I'm just being obtuse, but it just seems like when you try and add a plot element to something like Minecraft, you have to add the other side of the thing, which is like design, right? Like, why Minecraft is an interesting game in all kinds of ways is because it's freeform and procedural. But when you try and add more structure to that, you have to acknowledge that when you're adding that structure needs to have a form.
Yeah,
which means you have to do that work you didn't have to do previously. And it seems to me like you cannot have your cake and eat it too. Like, if you're gonna put a plot on top of things, even if it's still voxels and this is the same sort of moves available, you have to give the narrative via level design. Otherwise, you're gonna have a lot of people just having shit experience because the RNG was bad. Like,
yeah, I mean, it's a lot of RNG because it's basically. I mean, I'll get onto difficulty later. That's a weird thing entirely. But if you increase the difficulty, then you'll get better loot. But in terms of like upgrades, I mean, really, you get these things called, I think it's like elementals, where you can basically just increase and upgrade like your armor set, your bow, and your primary melee weapon.
right.
And I think the upgrades are interesting because they have, depending on what armor you get or what bow you get, they all have different buffs. It's like, oh, I have this armor that if I upgrade, it will pierce armor, or very standard RPG sort of things, like piercing damage or stabbing damage or whatever. Yeah, but because the game's very shallow, it's very short. It's like 5 hours. Maybe like 9 or 10 levels. Yeah, I mean, getting through a level, I would say it's about half an hour, but there's about 9 or 10 or something like that. And because
sorry, go on.
And because you finish the game pretty quickly, you get powerful very quickly, and you upgrade these things also very quickly. And it's like there's only like 3 upgrades per your weapon
tier or whatever.
There's only 3 tiers, so it's like once you unlock those tiers, there's no upgrading your character, like, oh, I get faster move speed or something like that. You do get these buffs that are just like, hidden in potions that you get from killing enemies, and those give you temporary like buffs. But in terms of upgrading your overall character, other than leveling up, there's no granular like RPG system. Which makes sense. It's like this is a game aimed at probably kids and families, and they may not want that experience.
So it's like baby's first RPG. Is that the vibe you're getting?
Yeah,
in the sense of like it has dynamics, but they don't go very far because you're not going to play very long. That's the premise,
and that's not a problem to me.
Yeah,
especially as the game's like, I think it's like £15 or £16 or something like that, or around that. So I don't expect there to be a vast RPG system. I think what's disappointing is the fact that this is a game that is attached to Minecraft and has that Minecraft money, and by extension that Microsoft money. So
I mean that's the thing. Like, you can't, like, it's one thing to say we're doing a shallow expansion. It's another thing to say we're releasing a brand new way of playing this game that 1 billion people own, right? Like,
it's a completely different experience, isn't it? And it's kind of, I don't know, it kind of screams Microsoft this generation, doesn't it? To just throw something a bit half-hearted out at the end of the generation, and maybe just try and entice a few people in, but actually then, if they had something that was maybe a bit more robust and a bit more fully fleshed out to be a console launch game, which they could have sat on this really for 9 months from what you're saying, Lucy, and just refined it and made it better.
This would have needed more than 9 months to be a launch game that is like, this would have needed a design overhaul and more budget, and probably a bigger team that works on it, because you think of launch games, you think of something like Halo, which, I mean, launch games are never that great anyway, but you usually want to come out with a banger. But yeah, I agree, Ben. Like, Microsoft have done that this entire generation, apart from a few standout cases like Gears has been great. Something like Sunset Overdrive, great games. But yeah, it's like with the case of State of Decay and Sea of Thieves, this is just a very undercooked experience. But what has given me hope with the games like State of Decay and Sea of Thieves is that they've kept with them, and they've made them into really robust games. So
that is definitely a thing that I think the Microsoft Studios or subsidiaries have done a really good job of. Except for maybe No Man's Sky, I don't see Sony doing the same type of doubling down.
Party and stuff like that.
No, so. but I mean the reason why I can't remember No Man's Sky.
I mean, Sony threw Hello Games? They threw them under the bus immediately. So Sony just.
But the thing is, they clearly still probably supported them to a certain extent, and maybe they didn't.
I think that game sold enough where they would. Sony were and Hello Games just went on there.
I guess we undervalue these incremental improvements.
But
just by the nature of things, because we have this flash in the pan type sort of news cycle. So I just wanted to put the props forward where, hey, this didn't work right away. Someone fixed it. That's really laudable, and also that makes us all happier and better as gamers. That's all.
I mean, Ubisoft do that great, but do like Sony, make a good game first, and if it needs improving, do that. But
and it's
out a God of War. Or
it's the difference
Horizon.
with Sony is how much time and resources they afford to, say, a first-party studio, which are now called, what are they called, PlayStation Studios or whatever they've decided to call all of them under one banner now, versus a sort of a third-party exclusive. They'll give them a certain amount of money. They may give them money for kind of marketing, a little bit of a push to get them towards the end goal. But for something like Hello Games, who are a super small studio, No Man's Sky has got to a position now where people are like, this game is brilliant.
Yeah.
3 or 4 years after its actual release, and that game must have been in development for 3 or 4 years before that. They could never have afforded by themselves to be making this game for 8 years and then release it now in the state that it's currently in. And I don't think even if Sony had given them a bunch of money, they'd have lasted this long without having to have some kind of release. So something like No Man's Sky can be
with that game.
You can have that second wind, exactly. You can have those people coming back in when the core experience has been updated, when you've thrown in more DLC, when you've expanded the game. But something like Minecraft Dungeons isn't a new IP, really.
No.
It's not a new IP. It's Minecraft. They've just done something different with it.
No, it's exactly the not new IP, but new game.
Yeah. And you would think this should have had that push behind it.
Yeah, I would have thought
should
so.
Have that.
Make this the next Diablo 3.
Yeah, absolutely.
And maybe it will become that. I mean, there's definitely a place on the world map that says new level coming soon, available for purchase. Will I purchase it? Probably not. But
Mate, you've already purchased the game. You've already purchased the fucking game.
Yeah, I paid my Game Pass subscription or whatever. So technically, yes. But yeah, it's just one of those. It's it's great when Ubisoft ports For Honor and Siege for 80 years.
Sorry, I just forgot For Honor existed, and I was laughing at it.
There's a community who love it and play it, and
I think
it's great that they do that.
You and I played that.
We did
beta,
yes,
and we were both like, "This is a dumb game." And then
3
months after it came out, it was like, "Yep, it's a dumb game."
But it's one of the best-selling games that year, and I thought that audience would be niche, but
no,
it's not. And it's okay, but the thing is it's frustrating. You can always see in all of these Microsoft, inside Xboxes and stuff like that. We're gonna have a cycle of a big first party game because we have 15 studios now come out every
Yeah.
3 months, and I'm just like, why? Let them cook. You've
Yeah.
gone this whole generation with people saying, "Oh, Microsoft has no first party games." They do, but you know, rhetoric and hyperbole is always going to win out. They don't have the clout as like Sony's games, which is because they don't, whatever. I don't know what happens in development, it's too much to go into, but for whatever reason, it's like, why would you then want to spend, like, you spent the last 7 years having that, and now we're just going to have the next 7 years of, oh, look at all these first party games, they're not that good though, they're all 7 out of 10s.
Yeah,
which is fine.
Again, I think that's something Sony have done well this generation. That okay, they may have had that like roadmap being right. We need a release in this window. We need a release in this window. We need a release in this window. But if it ain't ready, they're not afraid to just push it. I think that's some more time.
Yeah, I mean,
release The Last of Us 2, one of which I would imagine is going to be one of the biggest games this year, versus Ghost of Tsushima a month later, which again will probably be one of the bigger new IPs of this year.
Mm-hmm.
Just within 4 weeks of each other.
I mean, I think the key here is the
quality's more important than the cadence. You don't need a new game every month. Especially if Game Pass, new games are going to come to that, like third party, brand new, fresh out. Leverage that.
Yeah. The studios have slowly, and I mean slowly, figured out that timing is less important than impact, and they've taken basically a generation to figure that out. Like the entire PS4, Xbox One generation has been predicated on push it forward first, and then that not working, and then finally figuring out actually people want something more polished, and if it's in February or July versus November, they are fine with that. Like last year was a really good example of a surprises in the like economic market of games, because we had peaks where there shouldn't be peaks because someone released a good game in a place that's supposed to be a dead zone. And actually, it turns out the market doesn't care about. Yeah, there's the Christmas thing, but other than that, it's like no, like release a good game and people will pay for it. And actually, we shouldn't care as much about summer release versus February is a dumping ground, right? Like it should be a dumping ground, but like last year especially, like before everything went to hell, last year February had some upsets because economically this should have been a blah because people predicted no one will buy these games, but actually good games came out in February, and it's like turns out people buy good games, and this was a revelation. As an ex-economist, I could say a lot more about this, but I will just say that like this is the key, right? Like actually gamers outside of Christmas, because everyone just buys shit at Christmas, there isn't a game cycle, and like the past 2 years, especially the past year and a half, has proven that that's the case. And because of that, like they've had like a lot of studios have been on the back foot because they're like, oh shit, I could actually release something in March and it's probably okay so long as I can sell it. But they haven't, like, all of the PR like machinery isn't designed for that. And so there's this weird give and take because of the nature of the beast, and it's like what's the term? It's like inertia. The inertia of game salesmanship versus what actually sells games. Because like actually if you on a level playing field, you could probably sell game X any time of the year. But because of the inertia of game salesmanship and it focusing on certain parts of the year, there's just so many more PR dollars that go towards selling a game, and it will sell a game more successfully. That's not because people are wanting to buy a game in July or June or August or whatever. It's just because more money is thrown at game sales in July, August, or whatever.
I think some of that comes.
The industry trying to figure out how to like level those two things.
Yeah, and I think some of that comes from things like the conferences. So, you know, E3, great time to show off your upcoming games and get people hyped for everything. Release a game, you know, a month later, and everyone is still in that bubble of kind of hype, and they're like, well, this game that we saw isn't coming out for a year, but this game from Microsoft or from Sony or from Ubisoft is kind of similar to something we saw that we really liked that's kind of come out. Let's get this. And so there's always those, as you said, Aadil, there's kind of those peaks and those troughs that used to sort of happen around those sorts of times. And obviously Christmas and Black Friday, and there's Golden Week for Japan and stuff like this where sales do peak. But with this kind of this changing market as well of these conferences maybe not having quite the impact that they had over the last maybe 18 months or 2 years. But also, and we talked about it before, you know, Mass Effect 2, which released in a January. And, you know, that dead zone where no AAA game ever used to release. And then Mass Effect 2 did really well. And everyone's like, oh, alright. People still do have money in January. Okay. If an interesting game is coming out, as you say, people will buy it.
Yeah, I think from Microsoft's perspective, I think it's just two different business models. Whereas Microsoft are like, okay, let's have the cadence of, we need a new game coming out because we want you to subscribe to Game Pass. We don't want that subscription to last.
Yeah.
If a big game's coming out every 3 months, then we've got you for the whole year, basically.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I get that. And that's probably, you know, if I was looking in the next 10, 15 years, that's where I'd place my bets. That's where I'd want my money to go. When you look at things like Netflix and everything's a subscription now, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Toilet paper's a subscription now, so...
I mean, you joke, but actually, my house has been on a
Country.
mail-order toilet paper for months.
There you go.
Nice.
So it's like, that's where I, you know, if I was a betting woman, that's where I'd place my bets. So maybe in the long run...
Woman, so that's why you're doing that thing.
Yep, at the casinos all day, mate, but that's probably where I'd put my money. So it's nice to have someone, you know, well, we've got Nintendo and Sony doing both the same things, where it's like, no, they invest heavily in their first parties and player games like that. But just to circle back around to Minecraft Dungeons, I mean,
right,
it is a cheaper game. I think people who enjoy Minecraft will enjoy it.
Do you know how much it is?
I think it's £16.74 on Xbox.
Very specific.
Switch, it's probably like £50.
Is it on Switch?
It's on Switch, PlayStation.
Yeah.
It's on
It's on
everything.
everything, is it?
It's a wide release,
yeah.
So
Minecraft
the
comes to
best,
everything.
I mean, it's like clearly based on the Minecraft engine with some tweaks, but the Minecraft engine is
I don't
JavaScript.
even know if it's the engine though, because it's like it doesn't have any of like the terraforming or anything like. There's very little Minecraft in this. There's not even any crafting, and there's no mining. You know, you can't even make your own weapons. You have to go to a
looking
game. And that's the thing. It's like there's a game called Riverbond, which I think I spoke on about this pod.
Yeah, we've talked about it. Yeah.
Which is exactly the same thing. Isometric, voxely, hack and slash, like dungeon crawler.
Yeah.
And the thing is that there's only minor differences, probably with Minecraft with slight RPG systems, between that game and between Riverbond and Minecraft Dungeons.
Yeah.
And one is owned by a multi-billion billionaire company.
Yeah.
And they both had the same. They're both podcast games to me. Right. I just turned down the sound. The music's sparse, but all right. But turned off the sound and listened to podcasts whilst I was playing.
Can I ask one question before we move on, which is, if you weren't familiar with Minecraft and its like universe, would you play this game more than half an hour?
It depends what you're looking for. If you're just looking to turn off your mind and just slash at crap, then
but I mean that in like two ways. Like one is it immersive? And it might not be. The other is if I don't know anything about Minecraft, is this a generic non-immersive thing that I care about? So I'm kind of interested about both, right? Like, so like on the one hand, it's like, look, it's not as expansive as Minecraft. You can kind of just dungeon crawl, but it's a familiar environment. And the other one is like, if you aren't familiar with the environment, it's not good enough for you to care.
If I didn't care about Minecraft, I wouldn't pick this up.
Yeah, that's the question.
If I wanted a dungeon crawler, I wouldn't pick this up either.
Yeah.
If I was into those, I'm not a massive
Dungeon
fan
crawler?
by any means. Yeah, I'm not a massive fan of RPGs, as you lot know. So it's not
Those grenades.
exactly. Yes. See, I had no idea what you were on. So it's like, yeah. If I think it's a very good game to get on Game Pass if you have kids, if you just want to relax.
Yeah.
If
Can I
you
just
like
say a
Minecraft
word which I think
aesthetic.
seems to encompass what you're saying?
Mhm.
It's competent.
Yeah.
And I will say
Did-
that
I
where
was
you can interpret things on either way of what competent game means. I
no,
think that
to
seems to
surmise.
what
I
you're
was going to say it was competent, so you read my mind,
Yes,
mate.
good.
It's
Yeah.
competent.
I'm glad I preempted that.
Good.
So I mean, I'm not
Good.
glad because I didn't mean to preempt you, but like,
Yeah.
it sounds like it's one of those games where it's if you have other vectors coming in,
Mhm.
you will enjoy it, but if you don't, then maybe it's not for you.
Yeah, I think it's disappointing because it carries the Minecraft name, and it doesn't seem. I'm not saying it's insidious to like attach Minecraft to something and then it will therefore sell well. I just think maybe you could have done a better job incorporating the Minecraft elements, other than it just looks like Minecraft and some of the enemies. The enemies are enemies in Minecraft.
Wait,
and
so
have some
are
of
there
their
not
movements.
creepers
There's
and?
creepers and they blow up and stuff, but as I say,
It's literally the only Minecraft enemy I can remember from my brute foray. It's
I
the
think that's
weird
just
green
like
guy
a
who
Lots of sheep.
explodes. Yeah.
mob or something. The rest of the enemy, spiders
Doesn't
or
matter.
something.
Minecraft's
But-
for babies, and babies are for video games, and video games are for babies. And that's
I mean,
why it's a loop.
It just seems
Yeah.
like because Minecraft is a brilliant game. You could have just, done a better job at like
Well, I guess but this is also,
representing it and its quirks and its mechanics and stuff like that.
but it's
So,
also kind of the catch-22 because like what makes Minecraft an interesting game is the openness, is the fact that you could do blah and not pursue the plot because you didn't realize that was the plot.
yeah, but
It was,
but
and
you
like
could
so when you
still
try and like
use like the crafting as you
Yeah,
could have crafted weapons in this
Yeah,
game.
exactly.
That's surely
I
a given.
take it
Rather
back,
than
yeah,
picking up
you're
weapons,
right.
you could have picked up materials, gone to a crafting station, and tailored things to your kind of gameplay
Yeah.
style, to enemies, shit like that. Yeah, absolutely.
I take it
Yeah,
back.
the loot
actually.
could be weapons and
Yeah.
I get some iron ore.
If you're
I can
going to
now-
RPGize Minecraft and you aren't doubling down on the crafting, something went wrong.
Yeah,
Exactly.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
scope of this
Sorry, I
is-
missed that in the discussion. Kind of glossed over the fact that you were saying it was kind of. But yeah, you're right. Like,
that's more than enough talk on this media.
Let's open another beer.
Yeah.
Excellent. I'm going to open, as I mentioned earlier, a double IPA from Basqueland. This is Mucho Bueno.
Ooh,
oh, that's one. Ooh, I like that.
It is.
Yeah.
It's a lovely can.
pretty.
It is 8%. There is not much flavour text whatsoever. It tells me the ingredients are water, barley, wheat, oats, yeast, hops, CO2. And it does tell me the hops, which are Mosaic T90, Big Secret, Idaho 7, Mosaic Cryo, and Azaka. That's it. That's what I'm getting.
Yeah, I've had a few from Basqueland. High hopes for that one.
Yeah. I did comment. I did see someone else post it on Instagram, and they said it was really good. So
Very good.
looking forward to it. Cracking this one open. Adil,
So
you sort of know what you've got.
I'm gearing down while you're gearing up. So like we both started with a 6.5% IPA. You geared up. I am gearing down in the sense that it is a 4% New England Pale Ale. So it's Bristol's finest
I've got
Arbor.
that
I like Arbor. It's the Citrus Maxima. It is a lemon and lime pale ale. It's a New England ale brewed with lemon and lime zest and an all Citra hop bill. So I'm looking forward to Citra all the way up, all the way down. That's what they're explaining. So I mean, at the beginning of the episode, we sort of talked about how we talked on air about how should we order these things, and like I kind of thought this might be better in front of the polys, but actually I think given how much it's like fronting the citrus, it should be fine, even though it's a lower percentage.
Yeah.
Like if you're fronting this much, like Citra, it'll be fine. Like, so I'm looking forward to this because honestly, I trust Arbor, and I like pale ale that has citrus notes.
Yeah.
It's sure to be interesting. I suspect pre-pour that I will have to reform my opinion, given that I had a stronger beer before. But we'll see.
Give it a little bit of time. Get it cracked, and I'll talk about mine. It gives you a chance to sup it and for it to kind of acclimatise to your palate. This mucho bueno.
I mean, that's like no head.
I mean, yeah, it's very light on the head, but it is hanging around. You know, there's 5 mil, something like that, but it's sticking around. It's a little
like
bit.
A half finger.
It depends which finger, doesn't it? I suppose.
Yeah, no, it's still a half finger.
It's a little hazier, a little thicker than the polys, but it still has that slight straw colour to it, maybe a little more orangey than the polys.
So it seems quite opaque.
Like, extremely. Can you see
if
my
you
face?
put a finger behind that, I'm not going to tell that you put a finger behind it.
Yeah, we can't see you then. Just the
I'll
top
see
of
my
the
face
head.
behind it.
Put the actual performatively. Yeah, there we go. Like it's obviously like for those on video, you can tell that like there's no difference between Ben posing with a hand behind it and not. And I think that
absolutely.
like shows what kind of IPA it is.
It smells almost a little stewed.
Really?
But it's nice. It's a big nose. Some sweetness in there as well.
If you're in Spain, would you drink it? Is it light enough?
Is it light enough for Spain? Probably not.
Yeah. It is a double.
I mean, it is nice. It's a big, thick flavour. Chewy. Definitely chewy. And some of that comes through from the sort of that stewed nature to it. So it's a little danker, a little heavier than the previous beer. Definitely a bit more bitter, but it is edging on kind of it feels like it almost wants to be juicy, but have that chewy bitterness to it as well. So that does come across as those sort of stewed fruits sort of notes.
Interesting. Does that reflect in it being sort of drier than expected?
It is drier. Like you sup it, and as soon as you have taken it back, it's just dry.
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought.
And there's kind of this. What is that? There's this flavour that kind of sits in the background when you sup it, when you get those kind of like those initial flavours, even in the middle, and then when it dries, there's this flavour that kind of sits almost above everything else, and it's kind of takes you back to that sweetness a little bit. So whilst everything feels a little bit stewy, a little bit sort of chewy, on the end, on that lasting dry finish, the sweetness just lifts up a little bit, and it's almost what are those, like drumstick lollies are the thing that stick in my head. It's not quite a candy sweetness, but it's got this slightly fruity sweet note to it that just pops its head up again. It's like, yeah, I'm there, but now I'm it. And
yeah,
it's nice that it has that additional dimension to it on the finish, especially with it being dry. and expecting all of those flavors to kind of, just sit and then disappear. To have that extra note to it is really nice.
It's multi-dimensional.
That's MALTI dimensional. Multi-dimensional.
Let's copyright that.
That's it. Yeah, we've done it. Any beer we make can be that.
Oh,
well,
so
in conversation, we should use it.
So let me talk about this Arbor Citrus Maxima again. Very clean Arbor can. Boy, does it do the right things. I mean, I think I'm probably more partial to Arbor because they're Bristolian, but also they have the maple leaf in like various forms on their can. But on the nose, it is lemon, slight notion of lime, but like very lemony. It smells kind of like if you got a fresh lemon and tonic gin. Like it's just like it's very pungently lemony.
Okay.
Like you could almost mistake this for a cocktail because there's so much wafting lemon, and there's a little bit of lime afterwards, but mostly it's lemony. Like that's just the nose, which for a beer is like actually quite interesting because normally the citrus notes are like on the back foot, but actually you could mistake this for a cocktail in the sense of the nose is so strong. Yeah. It's very interesting.
So often we have beers where citrus is that backup kind of flavor. You have all of these other things going on and going, oh yeah, it's got this citrus running through the background that's kind of tying things together. Like, we actually rarely get a beer which Citra is the the single hop or the one that is like given chance to
so hop forward that like you can't tell other things. Having tasted it, I'm gonna have to say the sort of the terrible flip side of that, which is it kind of tastes one-sided, lemony lime, and like I don't want a beer that kind of tastes like a gin and tonic, but a beer.
Sure.
Like it's like
is it shandy?
There's so few other tastes going on. It does the lemon really well. The lime slightly less, so you get a notion of the lemon-lime dichotomy, which is interesting. But also, this is a lemon-lime drink. And like if you didn't give a shit about beer but liked lemony limey things, you could probably have this, which is good in a certain like context, but also
I mean you're in the park earlier. Shandy would have been perfect.
Right, yeah, exactly. But like what I'm not looking for is like this tastes like me making a like backup cocktail for my house. Like, everyone likes citrus. I'll just like pour citrus and gin in a bottle and like in a cup, and everyone will be fine. Like there's so little beer going on. Yeah. But also, it's like I'd be okay with that if the taste that we're going on was interesting. But it's kind of like, if I'm honest, it's like generic lemon and slightly less generic
if you had
lime.
a bit more depth to it, maybe a little bit more of a malty kind of body, just backing it up, like a biscuity note or something in there as well.
Something beery. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the problem is that it tastes like generic lemon lime drink, and like if you're looking for that, you don't go to craft beer for this. Like this taste is great for someone who needs to have a beer but loves gin and tonic. But also, that's not a thing that you need to worry about. Actually, what you want is, I like beer and I like citrus, give me something interesting. Or, I don't like these things, I won't buy a beer. And this is like the dead zone in between, to be honest. Like, I like what's going on, but also, I would rather it with a gin and freshly like sliced lemon or lime because it's doing that thing better. And this is like, I'm assuming you like this taste and I will do it the best of my ability. And actually it does it really well in the sense of a beer shouldn't taste this lemon limey. But if I want lemon limey, I'm not going to reach for a beer. So even though you're doing this better than I think a beer should do it, which is laudable, I'm never going to reach for this type of drink to do that thing.
Yeah.
I would rather just gin and tonic, slice of lime, squeeze. It will always be better than something like this because it is literally just fresh lemon or lime.
It sounds like it's probably a good like afternoon beer, just something refreshing and easy, or
It's a garden
something
beverage.
or something you might grab. You know, you've been drinking all night. You think you want one more. Perfect beer to grab. Easy, lime, lemony, just to finish your night. You don't really want another drink, but
Yeah, it's 4%, and like I was hoping for a little more liminess because that's harder to replicate. But like honestly, I could make a gin drink taste like this.
Yeah,
and I would do that kind of 9 times out of 10 when I wanted this type of taste, and that's where this failed. It's like laudable because it's malleable, but the way it's malleable is not interesting for beer.
What you should
drinkers.
do
Like,
is use it as a chaser for your gin.
oh, yeah, that's definitely. Yeah,
And then
I should
knock
pour
out.
2 ounces of gin in it, and then like squeeze 2 to 3 slices of lime. It'll probably taste exactly the same, but I'll get drunk fit
Exactly.
because I need to get drunk faster. Yeah.
obviously. Right.
Thanks, man.
Let's talk about some more games. I'm going to talk about a game. I played a game yesterday on my phone called A New Life.
Oh yes, I put that on my.
You've got this wish list
today.
on Steam, Lucy. Yes.
Yes, and
Well, I
on
think
iPhone,
I was looking at it yesterday. This was a game that I mentioned a few episodes ago that I could not remember the name of. Something that from the trailers reminded me a lot of Florence. Just through the use of kind of the characters in the trailer. And I had a quick look on Steam, and I thought, actually, this feels like I should play it on mobile. And yeah, it's like 80p more through the Google Play Store than it was on Steam, but it's less than £3. It was like £2.80, £2.89, something like that. And on Steam, it was just over £2. But it is a game that actually probably shouldn't be compared to Florence at all, apart from maybe just in terms of its narrative.
It's tone. It's a visual novel.
It is a visual novel. You are clicking through conversations, and you are clicking through conversations between 2 girls who fall for each other, and you're exploring their relationship. And it's quite prescient in that part of it happens whilst a global pandemic happens.
Oh wow!
Yeah. I don't know when this game had started in development, but it has released at exactly the right time.
Yeah.
And it is a game which had me not quite crying, but I'm like, you know, my throat is going.
Teary, welling up.
Teary is the word. Yeah, welling up.
We're not ugly, crying, bawling.
And
in fetal position.
yes, yeah. And that is in part because of the way that the 2 girls, or the 2 women, as kind of the story evolves, talk to each other, the relationship that they have. A slight criticism is that things do feel a little bit rushed in those early stages. You know, you're going through kind of those formative conversations between these 2 characters. You know, at some point talking about what they want to do with their future self. You know, in their future. I think actually they meet in school or in college. So the initial chapter is them. And the initial kind of first gameplay element is one character coming over to a table where the other is sat and saying, "Can I sit here?" And you can choose whether to say yes or no.
No, mate. Sorry.
Yeah. So I did try that
Game
option.
over.
So part of this game is you go through it, and the different things that you pick will give you an outcome. It's almost like a pick your own adventure type novel.
Yeah.
You know, you're running through picking these different dialogue options, and either conveying thoughts to the other character or holding them back, these sorts of things. And you might hit kind of this dead end. And you'll be presented with this kind of, not quite a game over screen, but the screen which sort of says, and I spent the rest of my days alone, in a very basic, not at all in the tone of the actual game kind of way to put it. And I don't want to give things away, because this had like gut punch after gut punch. I think my first play of it took maybe 10 or 15 minutes before I hit the first kind of end screen.
Right.
And then you get presented with this idea that maybe I could, the character says, maybe I could do this a different way. And you get this nice animation of it actually reversing through kind of those choices that you've made. You can then go back to a screen and pick a different chapter. So actually you can think, well, I don't want to change what I picked in that chapter. I don't want to change what I picked in that chapter. I'm going to focus on what I discussed with them in this chapter. Maybe look at how those conversations could have been different here. And I did that, and I maybe played through it 4 or 5 times, roughly, before I got to what I would assume is the actual end of the experience. And in that, I'm kind of like, okay, I'd welled up at the ending on my first playthrough. My second playthrough was, can I sit here? No.
Yeah.
That was a very short experience before starting again.
All right, bye.
Yeah,
mind.
pretty much. And a really kind of not harsh kind of ending, but one of those, like, we never knew what would be type of things, because it is all about the relationship between these two characters.
Right.
And I was very surprised when I think my third playthrough actually took me. It didn't have a different outcome to the point that I'd got to. It actually took me further. So the point that I had finished the first run through was only in maybe like chapter 3.
Yeah.
And there's about 6 chapters in this
Okay.
to be able to kind of get through. And I highly recommend this game for everyone to play, because it is really good. It is that level, that kind of level of Florence in terms of how it affects you, in its tone, absolutely, emotionally. And I think it takes some understanding, being like, okay, yeah, this is a game, and I can see that maybe there are branching paths, and if I pick this, something different will happen, which I wasn't expecting when I went into it. One good point about this, and I'm not going to say anything about the story because it is so short. The first run through was maybe 10 minutes. The one that took me all the way through, which I did start from chapter 1, took maybe 20 minutes, something like that. So it's a really short experience. I think I probably played it in total for an hour.
So it's really
it is really short. Yeah,
conceptually short.
Yeah. And one of the things that actually makes it shorter, but which I appreciated, was if I'd started again, or I was playing through chapter 2, and I thought, actually, I'm going to pick the same response to this question, that actually it was a different dialogue, and that it was shorter than the first dialogue I had. So they had, they spoke, and it was a kind of a talk and response between maybe 10 different points. But actually, the second time I hit that, it was only 3, and then moved me on to make the next decision to make. And I thought, I know what they're going to say for the rest of this. This is brilliant. I don't need that extended form of this part of the conversation. The game knows, hopefully that's what it was, that it knows that I have done this before, and it has kind of just fast-tracked me through to the next decision to sort of make.
That's
visual
really
novels
smart.
have gotten better at that. Because a lot of the thing with visual novels is, for a lot of people, seeing all the endings. You know, and then...
Or at least, like, feeling like you had the chance to get to the other endings. Like,
get the good ending or see the bad
like,
ending and stuff like that,
visual novel sort of plotty games have completionists who are like, I will replay it and I will figure it out. And then there's people who are like, did I get a good... Like, I want the good ending. I'm only going to do a primary run through. And if I didn't have a chance to do that, I'm going to say, fuck you. And so like, a game of this type has to toe that line, because you need to make the primary/good ending the default without making it seem the default, because if it's just a foregone conclusion, those same people are going to be like, oh, fuck you, or there's no way, blah, blah, which sucks. And I get, as a game designer, that's not great. But, like, the fact of the matter is, like, the vast majority of people who play these games play them once the way through and want the ideal outcome.
I think it's sort of actually the opposite. Like, a lot of people who play visual novels, they're min-maxing everything.
No,
and they want
to. I'm just saying. Everything. I'm saying outside of the min-maxers who will always just play enough times to optimize, the ones who only play it once or play it a minimal amount of times want the minimal amount of times to get them the right answer.
Yeah,
and that's the difference. It's like, it's not that they won't, like, go back 2 steps, but they don't want to go back 5 steps. Because the ideal ending should be easy to find. But then the min-maxers are like, actually, the right answer might take more effort. So you have to toe a line between those, because those are the primary audience. And
I think this is
no one casual will ever hit either of them, right? Like, the casual person will never be the min-maxer, nor will they be the ideal first run person. And so you have to, like, wash your hands, but not wash your hands, because if someone goes through, they need to have a decent ending so they can recommend it to your friends. But if the decent ending is really easy to accomplish, then the non-min-maxer type is like, well, but why am I doing this? It's awful. I think, like, gamers are a disease on game.
But I think what a lot of the designers of, like, these visual novels, they put in a lot of tools to, you know, cater for both. Like, sometimes they just do, you can completely speed up the text to get to this point.
Which
like
I think is, like, the best move. Is just acknowledge that some people are min-maxing and they don't care about the content. So give them a tool to skip the content they don't care about. While being blatant about, if you care about that content, you shouldn't use this tool.
Yeah, but also people read faster than a lot of text kind of displays itself if it is, like, continuous, text. So it's like...
Yeah, but, like...
I found myself a lot with this game that I was tapping... I was tapping the screen to get through to the next text. So I'm like, yep, red, yep.
I'm going to sidetrack a bit, which is I mark undergraduate papers. Turns out I read quickly. And I read quickly in a way that I can absorb, like, the dialectic, like, what someone's argument is. If I had to, like, wait to, like, have some machine tell me what this person is saying, I would hate marking so much. But I know people who are good, competent philosophers who read at the pace of word, and that's not a bad thing. It just means, like, they're like, oh yeah, I just kind of, like, read it out loud to myself and then do this evaluation. I'm like, that would drive me crazy. Oh, it's not like I'm better than you or you're better than me. It means that, like, there's different ways of doing it.
Absolutely. And again, it's just accommodating for those different ways.
Why I bring this up is because with gaming, I think you because you're trying to, like, sell, you're gonna try to court the lowest common denominator, which is if I got the game to read out this thing to you, would you be happy? And then even if I don't get the game to read it out, I'm gonna get the game to spool it out in the same way. Where like when you're like, I can read quickly and I want to problem solve, this makes games really dull because I want to know all the bits and pieces of the puzzle and I want to just find it. But
Yeah.
I'm trying to pursue this goal at a pace that isn't the same as a narrative version of those clues. But also the narrative version of those clues lines up with the like, hey, I just want you to tell me those clues really clearly. And neither of those are bad, but they line up really well. But the version that I want is like the fast-paced blah, because I happen to read quickly. That's just a thing I do.
It's just an accessibility thing, though.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. But
a game that did text really well is like Eliza. It's like, oh, I can just get the text to read automatically at this pace.
Yeah.
I don't know if it did like fast, medium, slow.
Yeah, but that's
or
a
I
great
can
example
tap
of
on
how
it when I
a
want
game
to. Yeah.
like is good at trying to navigate that tension. Like where games falter is often like we paid some voice actor to read a thing, so we're gonna just make sure they read it. And it's like, actually, some of your audience doesn't want to hear that.
Yeah,
and
you must now
the audience
listen to
who
what
wants
we
it,
have paid for.
and the audience who wants it at that pace doesn't necessarily need that person reading it. They just want it spooled out that way.
Yeah.
Those are very different things, right? Like
options in games, that's what we need more.
Yeah, but like it's tough, and I get it because it's not like.
Is it tough? I mean, I've heard from so many developers that it's very easy to implement these things. It's just that they see the number of people that would benefit, and everything's about budget and stuff like that. But I don't think it's a hard thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing is like
financially,
voice acting and that stuff costs a lot of money, but often in a lot of games where it's not the foreground move, like where you're not doing a acted out cutscene that everyone needs to just pay attention to. When you do it as a minorly secondary thing, it's really easy to redesign the game where that doesn't matter. So, for example, Ben and I have both said that, like, actually, I kind of read quicker than I hear. So I would rather the voice acting didn't exist, but you fucking had to pay for it. So you're going to definitely put that in the game. Yeah. When you could design the game where the nuance is in the voice acting, or at least, even if the nuance has not changed, you just say, like, this is the MO, this is the modus operandi, like, you're in this thing, and you have to listen. And then we wouldn't begrudge that. But when it's pseudo-optional, and you're paying for it, you just lag people who have a slightly different than your default point of view audience, and that just turns people off.
Like it does, and I think some of that comes down to writing. So with A New Life, a lot of those, it is conversational. So there's not big monologues. A lot of it is a sentence and two sentences, and then the other person will talk or interject. So it's not a huge amount of text to have to swiftly kind of bust through and stuff.
Is it just like choosing like little dialogue bubbles?
Yeah, it is dialogue bubbles, exactly that. So a character might say, I've been working lots, I've really got to get this done. And the other one will say, you've either got kind of the choice of I'm worried about you, or yeah, I understand, something around that kind of thing. Yeah. And you would pick, say, I'm worried, and they would say, I'm worried, blah, 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 blah. And the other character would then say something, and then it would go back to that character. And it is very conversational. And it's very swift.
I'm wondering, the developer of this game, which Steam says is someone called Angela He, I know they've made a game that's on itch and Steam called Missed Messages. I've had it downloaded for quite some time. It's free. I was wondering if you'd played that.
I haven't.
No, I haven't.
I know of it,
yeah,
but I haven't played it. Yeah.
No, I did look at the other games that they'd made on the Google Play Store, and there's one called Wholesome Cats, which is free that I'm going to look at.
It's got cats in the title. I'm
Yeah,
sold.
exactly.
How do you go wrong?
And there's also a game called There's This Girl, which again is free, which is, I think, again, another virtual novel style game. So I'll look at those, but I haven't played anything that they've made on itch.
Yeah. I just heard that Missed Messages is meant to be really good, so maybe
Okay.
one to check out.
Well,
There it is,
take a look.
fly buzzing.
Yeah,
Yes,
fine.
I definitely Missed Messages.
Yeah. It's such a vast world, the visual novels world. It's like
Absolutely.
there's a website. I think it's just called Steam 250, which just like points out like trendy games, like what games are rising to the top, what hidden gems people are. They've got a whole separate like website for like visual novels. So, I mean, they're a dime a dozen. I don't mean that negatively, but it's just like there's a lot of them. So
There are. And I think this kind of stands out in that actually it's, you know, when I play visual novels, you do occasionally get that, you know, you're one character and it does go into kind of monologue mode, and that character will just do reams and reams of text, whereas A New Life it's about two characters, and you occasionally switch between who is driving the conversation and who you're picking kind of answers for, or who is maybe looking at their phone, and you know, the image of a phone will pop up and you can either pick a message or pick the news article about the pandemic that's going on, which may then inform later conversations and things like that.
Okay, that's interesting.
And one thing about this which really needs to be highlighted is that it is absolutely beautiful. It is, you know, Florence had that lovely, very dark, black lined and solid coloured cartoony nature to it. This is light and beautifully watercoloured, and it just looks fantastic. And again, saying about how those, you know, you go into the same chapter and they're having the same conversation, and actually there's a moment, and the point that I noticed this was that the two characters are in bed and they're kind of lying sort of almost spooning, like, you know, and then in the next time I went into that chapter, one character was actually on her back and the other one was holding across her. So you had a similar conversation, but the animation was slightly different. They were in a different position.
Really
And it was really good because it felt like a different playthrough, having that slight change. And the animation is not much. It's kind of still image of the you know, the two women lying next to each other, and then one of them will talk. When the next bubble pops up, it's a different image, and she'll be looking down slightly at her. When the next one pops up, her head has moved back up. You know, it's really simple. It's really easy to take in, but it looks beautiful. It's stunning, and it is kind of impactful, especially when you kind of get the scenes that are like narrative driving, that are that kind of change in tone. That it does slightly change how that affects, and it may, like, it just washes all of the color out.
That's
and
exactly
suddenly,
what
like,
you want.
wow, this is like a hitting kind of moment.
Yeah,
because like what you want from those moments isn't something that's like amazingly world bending. You want something that is world affecting, even if it's small. Which is why I think that, like, the nuances of small games really go the distance. Like, Florence probably isn't the right example because it doesn't do that sort of, if you're in a different point of view, you'll have a different notion. It
Absolutely.
just does.
And I mentioned when you got up and left the room, I said to Lucy, actually, Florence at first seemed like the right sort of touchstone for this, but actually it isn't at all.
Yeah. Like, what Florence does is amazing. If you've never played that, fucking play it. It is. I mean, and I'm not just saying this as a person who's gone through grief of a very similar, like, relationship point of view as that game. It's just really good. If you've ever had an adult relationship with a partner, same sex, opposite sex, I think you can like translate. But like that game is harrowing because it's grounded.
It's a horror
absolutely.
game, actually.
It is
Straight
grounded.
up survival horror.
Yeah, exactly. Right, but like
Junji Ito kind of horror, you know.
I don't know if it's Junji Ito kind of horror. I don't know if I will abide by that claim. But like, what makes it interesting is that like baseness. But like coming up with that mapping is a notion of like, yep, this works. But like some games aren't. And like you're right, like actually there's certain like games or experiences, whatever you want to call them, that like are sufficiently flat that they can map beyond something like. So Florence works because it's a very niche thing that most people will probably have experienced. But then that nicheness is its like undoing in the sense of if you don't know that relationship, you're gonna think this is kind of a bullshit game.
No, I think it does things mechanically interesting. That.
Oh no, but I just mean like
yeah.
the impact of that game.
Of the story, yeah. Maybe.
Yeah, the impact of that story is totally emotional, and I think if you hit your mid-20s, you will have had something similar enough that you can relate to the Florence dynamic.
Yeah,
if
you're
you
10
are
years
like
old,
18,
maybe.
you might not have, right? You're going to be like, I kind of get what's going on, but you don't get why this game is super impactful.
Yeah, and I think A New Life is similar.
That's what I was trying to hint at.
Yeah. In the kind of, whilst I have never experienced the notes that kind of play out through this game, I could completely relate to it when that kind of hit, especially as it is set during kind of a pandemic as well. You know, that idea, and it's kind of once you've actually, there's a point in a later chapter where you actually come out the other side of this pandemic, and there's other things that sort of happen, and I'm just sort of like, you know, just again, as I said to you, Lucy, not quite in tears, but I'm like, oh,
you're choked up.
Jesus Christ!
Your heart got torn into.
I think that's the moment.
It's like
that
here.
I think,
Yeah,
but
hitting my beard.
That's the moment most game designers aim for.
Yeah.
I don't want you to be so worked up that you don't play. I want you to be choked up and you can play. So actually, like, what a game designer wants is you to hit that like threshold of being like, oh, well, I'm mapping all kinds of things and I don't know how to deal with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
That sounds great. I'm gonna play Missed Messages. I mean, I wanted to play it anyway, but it's moved up priority now.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would suggest.
Sounds great.
You know, again, A New Life is. You know,
it's only like
I played maybe about an hour. In total, I had about 5 different playthroughs, getting to different areas, different
dialogue,
different chapters, different dialogue, and every single one of them I wanted to progress. I don't think I ever got to a point within that time where I'm like, no, I'm done, thanks. I get what this is. I wanted to see that through. I was invested enough. And as I said kind of at the start, the only criticism I had was maybe the first chapter was maybe a little bit too short, that you're like, oh hey, let's hang out, or let's now, you know, maybe hang out a little bit more. Oh no, now we're in a relationship, done. And we progress so quickly through that you miss maybe those kind of formative early years of that relationship.
Does that detract from like getting to know the characters? And do you think if you had, I mean, you say that you choked up anyway, but do you think having that context would have brought it all the way to tears?
I think maybe the context and being a little bit more connected to the two characters may have just made me fucking weep.
So maybe it's good that it didn't.
So yeah, possibly. But I almost wanted. I think that was the takeaway from this. That I kind of wanted just that little bit more that actually, yes, the experience that I had did make me feel such a range of emotion and quite strongly, but that I just wanted that extra little step.
Yeah.
And whether that was from an early scene, from being a little bit more connected to the characters, I think would have worked just that little bit better, perhaps.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder if I would have cried at Ori, or wouldn't have cried at Ori if I hadn't played the first.
Yeah, it's
Interesting.
Hard to say.
Yeah.
Very hard to say.
Very hard to say.
The same as the same, but it's one of those that you think about Red Dead and Red Dead 2. In that, yes, you've experienced Red Dead and you know one of the characters and you have experienced their, if you got to the end of Red Dead Redemption, you know what happens to that character at a much later date whilst you're playing Red Dead 2. But they are not the focus. You're not connected with that character in the same sort of way. Yeah. You're on a completely different focus, yet still Red Dead. I mean, I can probably count on maybe 2 hands the games that I have actually cried at.
Yeah, same.
And Red Dead 2 is on the second hand, I guess. But because of that is solely driven by Red Dead 2, not by Red Dead Redemption, not by the original game, which is a sequel. So.
Red Dead Revolver.
Not by Red Dead, not by Capcom's Red Dead Revolver.
There's no way
game.
anyone has any strong fucking emotional feelings from Red Dead Revolver. It's just not.
Absolutely
not.
not.
Shooting,
however, had you played Gun, which was a brilliant game when it came out on PS2.
Yeah,
that's a brilliant game. That evoked an emotional
I owned it on
response.
PC. That's a PC game.
Oh,
Shouldn't
that's
have been
a PS2 game to me.
Yeah, I'm saying by the time I get into PC, it probably shouldn't have been a PC game.
Strangely enough, to take this on a completely different tangent, I think Gun was the.
How did we get
first,
from a visual novel?
I don't know, mate. I don't know. But Gun was the first game that really brought to me some kind of notion about what Native Americans had gone through. Like I'd never been told about that in school. I'd never had any stories about that at all, and actually gave me this kind of slight, very, very slight understanding, or at least some kind of notion about what that history was. Yeah.
That's fair.
Don't underestimate Gun.
No, I'm sorry, I'll never do that again. Yeah, games are educational even when they don't intend to be.
They absolutely are. Especially, and again, this, A New Life, a game where you say about Florence, needing to be maybe a certain age and having a certain experience to kind of understand. A New Life may fall in that same kind of category that you perhaps need to hold something dear enough to you that you can see why, to elicit that emotion from you from the outcome and kind of what happens through that story. But it may just be that kind of gateway game which makes you think slightly differently, which brings someone else's experience to the fore and help you kind of understand how other people experience life and how they feel, and that actually it's exactly the same as how you experience life, on a certain scale.
Yeah. I mean, you can take anything out of it as long as you're not a sociopath or a child, because children are sociopaths.
They absolutely are. Yeah. Completely.
That's just the way it is.
Just self-fucking absorbed sociopaths.
And games with capital G, they're sociopaths as well. But something like, I don't know, Firewatch, if I'd played that when I was 13, it probably wouldn't have had the same effect. I doubt anyone under the age of 20 listens to this podcast, but sometimes you just need a few notches on your belt too. It's like we've been talking about Kentucky Route Zero recently because you're playing through it, Ben. Mm-hmm. It's like, even though I played those episodes when they came out, just having a better understanding and analytical mind now. Like,
Yeah.
I've, in a weird way, grown up with that game because it came out, what, 8 years ago?
No, I think that's
Mate,
I think that's
25 years ago, Kentucky Route Zero
I think
started.
that's
It rings
entirely
more true.
specific and important, right? Like,
Yeah.
I
especially
wouldn't
on
have cried at
episodic
that game
games,
7 years
like
ago.
actually, what makes certain episodic games work is the fact that the developers and the audience are maturing at the same rate.
Well, some of the
Yeah.
audience.
Yeah, I get
Some
that.
are just...
Yeah, but like, why
not
that
you.
move
I'm
works
talking
is
about the weird
because,
one.
like, the developers realized that they bit off more than they could chew, roughly, in the sense of like what we can explain, not what we need to explain, but what we can explain, and they did that for a couple episodes. But also, the people who were like fans of what they were doing were like, "Cool, I trust you, so I know more about the world that a narrative move within X minus Y is suspect, but I'll give you the benefit of the doubt." Like, I think games like that exist because the
Because
developer...
Twin Peaks was made, basically.
Exactly. Yeah, basically, yeah. Like,
Yeah.
especially like the last season of Twin Peaks, which was a continuation of what, like 15 years ago before. Like, it was the whole point was we're all on the same page with respect to our background, so we just have to accept it. Now, what can we do? And there's a lot of games that are like kind of like back premised in that way, which is like the reason why you care about this is a thing that's kind of problematic or weird or whatever because games were simpler 5-10 years ago. But what I want to say as a developer is something more complex. The only way I can make that point is to have you just accept this shitty premise.
Yeah.
And the premise is shitty because, again, like if you pay attention, then like there's no way to like square this. It's not that it's bad. Like, it's not that it's like objectively bad. It's just like if you care about all the variables, there's no way to square them. But also, if we just accept we can't square all those things, we can move forward while like recognizing the past, which is how we all sort of bought into this. And that's why,
Are we
like,
still talking about gun?
yeah. But like that's why these older games can have this like longevity because they don't need to be like they definitely don't need to be perfect with respect to their history. They just need to acknowledge that that history exists. And like that's why like when you reboot a Resident Evil game, you can fuck it up because it's not that we need the perfect reboot. We just need you to say, like, we just need you to say, hey, this was the move back then, and it was problematic. But because it's a big studio, they want to have this like problem-free reboot move, and then
Are we talking about Resident Evil 5?
Yes, that is
Okay.
exactly what I would.
Okay.
But like that's what the difference between some of the Resident Evil like reboots, right? Like some of them were just like, hey, I'm just gonna like whoever's in charge is just kind of gonna do the thing with a different perspective, and we're just gonna acknowledge that the thing has weird moments, and that works really well.
Which was the Resident Evil game in Africa?
That was 5.
5. Yeah.
Because I feel like that probably just shouldn't exist.
Agreed. Yeah, but that's because the base game was bad, and rebooting it doesn't fix the bad. But like
Who would
anyone
reboot
could have
Resident
told
Evil
you
5
this.
though? I don't
Well,
think
no, but
anyone
like so,
wants
four changed it up, didn't it? And they're like, yeah, we're gonna send you to like Europe, and it's third person, not fixed camera anymore. And then 5's like, oh no, there's a virus in Africa.
I mean,
Go and shoot all of these fucking
the weird
Africans.
Spanish
Like,
village.
oh no. No.
The weird Spanish village was
That's the
an
point I was trying to
indication
make.
of where that series was going
like-
anyway.
As soon as you got an appreciation
that
for
was
what
false.
might be problematic, you could easily negotiate this minefield. The fact that people didn't have that appreciation and tried to negotiate the minefield is a different problem.
Yeah, I think that's where that comes from. I think
Yeah.
that game existed, whatever. Like, so many games are just, especially if you go back to the 80s and 90s, are just, you're thinking, oh my god, this definitely wouldn't fly now.
Resident Evil 5 should absolutely have been released in 1985.
And no later. Yeah.
Yes. But it's
like-
just like, yeah, that happened, and it's like, I think,
but the
as you
stupid
said,
thing
it's
is,
more
like-
important that we acknowledge, okay, this was bad, and
Yeah.
this is why. Not that,
The-
oh, you enjoyed the game, you're a bad person. That doesn't mean that at
Yeah,
all.
Absolutely,
It-
yes, absolutely.
It's just that acknowledge it has its issues.
But also, hilariously, like,
Mm.
even in 1995, you could have easily predicted that the 1995 version of Resident Evil should have belonged to 1985. Like,
Well,
that's where it all falls apart. Where it's like, actually, if I look at the time, no one was confused that this was a bad move, but they still did it. But that's fine because it's a different
We're
problem.
progressing
Yeah,
slowly. but surely.
Slowly, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it
But
matters.
we're,
Like, I
yeah,
think
we're getting
It
there.
does. It does matter. It does matter. And you know, smaller games like A New Life help us to just tick over at that little bit more and to progress things that little bit more. And we're
Yeah,
getting
for
more
sure.
of these experiences. We're getting more of them, which is brilliant. You know,
Yeah.
the amount of small, heartfelt, emotional experiences we were getting 5 years ago were in the tens, in the single digits, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, like smaller twine games have been around for
Yeah.
you know a good decade now. So it's like, yeah, that's a lot where people cut their teeth and you know start making games. And yeah, it's great seeing games from different perspectives. That's what we've always needed
Absolutely.
instead of
agreed. Yeah,
big hulking dude with a gun in every game, which is great.
Me with a gun.
Yeah, look at those guns.
Angry white
Yeah.
man.
hey,
That's,
I'll shoot those aliens. It's fine.
yeah,
No one
he
else
looks
will.
like,
I'll do it.
BJ Blazkowicz, angry, almost dead face in.
BJ Blazkowicz
Wolfenstein.
wishes he could grow a beard like this.
But
Hey.
like it's crazy that even BJ Blazkowicz in like the last like Wolfenstein games is like a really relatable character.
Yeah.
And, like, the best written in the last 10 years. So
Hey.
Right. I feel like we've. I feel like Aadil, you've had a topic on our conversations, just delving into so many different things this week.
I was just saying,
Like,
my
that's the
my
way of
topic
saying you haven't
was
played
kind
anything.
of just picking on everyone else's topic.
Yeah, I
think
mean,
it's
we
fine.
talked about 2 games this week: Minecraft Dungeons and A New Life. But we have hit so many different talking points. Good, that is exactly
tangents are good. We
how
even
it
got
should
gun
be.
in there. And
we did. Yeah.
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 So I have things to say. I think I should hold them on for next week.
Ooh, what are they on?
Yeah.
Just to give a preview.
Very small
I mean,
things.
I literally
Oh,
finally
yes.
hooked up the PSVR.
Yep.
So there's like a backlog of a couple games that I want to talk about. But in general, like, yeah, there's things we could have talked about today which were generically game related.
Shall we talk about weird peripherals next week? Because
Yeah, let's do that.
I mean,
Well-
I'm going to see if I can do
Ooh.
anything.
Oh, so Lucy, yeah, that's a good thing. Lucy, you and I are going to figure out how to make sure that PS2 fucking
The
steering
wheel.
wheel does as much as I can.
Yeah,
Because
because it's got.
I've decided right now
It's got a scar.
that we're going to
It's
try
not Scarlet,
and
no,
figure out. No, but
Mind-
we're going to try and figure out how to make that do all it can do. But then also, I'm going to try and figure out how to get some sort of VR hooked up to the computer I've got,
Yes.
such that we can play the same game where you are playing on a 2D screen with a wheel, and I'm playing with a controller or some other bullshit with VR, and we're going to see what we think of that game.
I like this.
Yes.
I've decided, and because I've been drinking enough, I'm just like, I will do all kinds of peripheral support because I can figure that out. So
Yeah, I'm
between
going
the
to
two
try
of
and
us,
figure.
we will do those
figure-
things.
We're going to get the screwdrivers out.
Not
Yeah.
to burst everyone's bubble, but next
Yeah.
week we may have a guest.
Oh, right, that
Hey,
too.
join you on that fun topic.
So this may be a fun topic to end that episode on, if it
No, I will
all-
not put anyone through that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This may be a
That's
fun topic
entirely right.
once we've
Like-
said goodbye to our guest and we have an
Yeah.
extra 20 minutes
Hour.
to chat.
Hour.
Yeah.
You'll be like,
An hour
It's
to
about
talk each
peripherals.
other through
Yeah.
the setup and
you
then
like
actually play the
adapters. You know, if you like talking about adapters, weird adapters that can't be found
So,
anywhere
yes.
on
So we will have a beer-related guest, I think.
No.
Theater-related guest.
A games-related guest.
With
Do
an
I say more
interesting beer.
just in case it doesn't
No, I
come
don't
off?
say more.
No, right. I
Nah,
won't.
just do it
Yeah.
now. Yeah.
Let's just talk
Tease it.
about the beers. Let's talk about the beers that we drank. Aadil, 2 beers you had from Polly's and from Arbor.
Polly's. The Polly's was better than the Arbor. Sorry, it's just it's like
fair.
snap keep. Like
Yeah.
the Arbor was interesting. I also recognized that it was a lighter beer in the face of having had the Polly's, but like the lemon lime was interesting, and like I think I could have multiple beers under the shroud of the Arbor lemon lime. Like
Mhm.
I could probably just have a good night or afternoon in hot weather and just be like, yeah, this works. But the Polly's was just more nuanced. There's more going on, and I really liked that beer. Like it wasn't just. To be honest, if I push came to shove, the Arbor was like, yes, I'm doing lemon lime, but nothing more important or interesting.
Mhm.
And the Polly's from the get go was like, hey, these are interesting tastes going on. And given that you're trying another beer later, you're probably gonna have to like figure out what the base taste was versus the Arbor, which was I'm a lemon lime beer, that's my base taste.
Sure.
Explain it towards other things. So like if the Polly's didn't have to sort of speak to the nuance on other things, I think it would have more notes. And that's like I just think it's a more interesting beer.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. I'm going to agree with you against the Mucho Bueno as well. That the Polly's was a more interesting beer this week. That had a more well-rounded flavour. The Mucho Bueno, which gave me that little bit of stewed fruits, which had a little bit of that sweetness creeping in, but not a huge amount. You know, when we were talking about the Polly's, we were saying about how that pineapple really kicked through, and that actually it kind of really pushed that very well, whilst having these other flavours backing it up. The Basqueland, which was a double IPA, Mucho Bueno, was a good beer, but it kind of felt a little bit one note the more I drank it.
Okay.
You know, it got those different sort of flavours happening in those initial sort of sips and trying to pick those things out. But the more I drank it, the more it just felt like that one sort of solid, quite strong stewed fruit tropical note that didn't really move after maybe after maybe a third of the glass. For the other 2/3, it felt very samey throughout that flavour, and didn't evolve or didn't open up as much as the Polly's did. And I agree, the Polly's was just a very good beer, which did a lot. So it is for me the Polly's this week as well, which is the Daphne Touch.
Yeah.
Nice. Spanish
Yes.
Spanish craft brew scene is really interesting. It's getting bigger. Like,
Yeah, it is.
like garage and stuff like that. So, trip to Spain when we can go.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah.
Who knows when that will be?
Yep.
Tomorrow.
So
I'm gonna drive there in Euro trucks.
Hey.
we'll get the Euro tunnel over. We won't. I don't want to be around all the cold-filled, diseased people. Even though it's not a disease, the government keeps saying this is a disease. It's not a disease. It's a virus. It just as a point of contention
Anyone
I
in the
need to get
government
out
have
there.
any idea
It's
what
a
I'm talking about?
virus.
Yeah, I don't know
If
what
you
I'm
see a
talking
government official telling you it's a disease, tell them they're wrong. So
Oaf.
we'll finish there this week. If you want to get hold of us and tell us that our opinions on games or beers are wrong, you can do so in lots of different ways. At TankedUpCast on Instagram or on Twitter. You can email us tankedupcast@gmail.com. You can get me at Nova_47 on all the socials, or on PlayStation if you'd like to play some games, some Streets of Rage 4 perhaps. You could join all of us on Streets of Rage 4 by befriending Lucy at JuicyLoose9.
I need to do that.
And being our fourth member on some kind of remote play experience.
The game's fun. The game's real fun.
It is very fun. Yeah, absolutely. It'd be good to play full player from the start and see how it progresses in difficulty.
I mean, as a person who's never played the game, yes.
We'll get you on there.
And Lucy, you are Juicy.
I'm Cherry though. Yes, sorry.
Okay, you be Cherry. That's fine. You're Juicy Sign everywhere. I mean, I hope we don't have to stick to stereotypes. I don't want to be fucking Axel, just a fucking rectangle with a head.
White man.
I'll be Blaze instead. White woman instead. Aadil is at the Omniarch almost everywhere except Twitch, which he is the _Omniarch, and may play some more Final Fantasy VII, which seems to be the thing you are streaming over Twitch.
Yeah, so the thing I am streaming is FF7 Remake, but it is the Omniarch, OMNIRARCH. It's also shared on this channel. I haven't played it in about a week and a half.
Seems like a undertaking.
So to be honest, like, I almost streamed Animal Crossing earlier this week, and then I was like, I kind of hate this game. So Lucy,
I've graduated
front, I picked up all the weeds. I just succumbed to no one likes wildlife. I picked up all the weeds, but also
you compromised your vision.
Yeah, I know, but I realized that if I picked up all the weeds, I can probably convince the island that I should put the museum on level 3 and make people strive to go there, and I don't care if it's difficult.
You compromise your vision, the dream's over.
Yeah, there's no point in that game anymore.
No, it's like my whole vision was to have a nice kitchen.
I'll go back to Breath of the Wild without any notion of fruition. That's what I'll do.
It sounds like what you've been doing with Animal Crossing. It's fine.
Yeah, basically. The Switch is for babies, but babies play more games than anyone else, so I play more games on Switch than anyone else.
It's a good platform to play games on.
It's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's us this week. For another week, we have been tanked up. Bye-bye.
Bye! Nope. I'm bad at clicking.
Oh, go to outlaws.net. That one too.
Cool. I'm glad you said that because I hadn't hit stop. Now I hit stop.
www.outoflives.net